Did you have a lot of before this, did you think that AIG was in peril?
Just maybe 24 hours before it. I mean, there were some signals that were going out that they were going to have a big collateral call going on in the following week. And, well, the very fact that they were calling me and, sending out stuff Friday evening at 8 or 9 o'clock in New York indicated they were in peril.
Yeah, so
I mean, it's a AAA company on that day. I mean, it wasn't going to be the next week. But when a AAA company is calling you at 9 or 10 at night and faxing things out to you,
What does a call to Warren Buffett mean, you think?
Well, it means that they know we'll act fast if we like something. So we are the best fast buyer for anything that involves in the billions of just about anybody. And they knew I'm interested in the property casualty business in this particular case. And that they are desperate for something that's going to close within a few days. Or they got a binding contract on.
So the next day, around 6 p.m., this is Saturday, September 13th, you get a different call, this time on your cell phone, from Bob Diamond of Barclays.
That isn't quite right. The next day, I had a long-standing promise with Walter Scott to go to a charity dinner and performance in Edmonton. So I flew up with Walter, my wife and I flew up with Walter to Edmonton. We're in the hotel room in Edmonton, and I didn't think anybody in the world would know where I was, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and then it's Bob Diamond, and he said, we run into problems with the Brits on doing a deal with Lehman because there's some rule in the UK that the shareholders have to vote on it if it involves more than a guarantee of X billion. And so we want to buy an insurance policy whereby you will guarantee that we perform on all our, Lehman performs on all of its contractual obligations until the British shareholders of Barclays have had a chance to approve the deal. And I said, how big a guarantee are you talking about? And he said, unlimited. I said, well, that sounds a little unusual. But I said, send me the details, tell me how much you'll pay, and whatever time I get back from this function tonight, I got to go downstairs in a little bit, but I will respond. I'll get back to you, and I'll probably get back to the room at 11 o'clock or so, local time out there. And so I went down and watched the performance. Paul Anka was there. I came back up to the room, and there was no fax for me. And I called down to the hotel manager. I said, must be a mistake because there's supposed to be a fax for me. And he said, there's nothing here. And so I stayed up a while longer, and then finally I went to bed. And it turned out, of course, that instead of faxing, they'd sent me a phone message, and I got this little flip phone, and in fact, I still have it on me. It's the same phone from those days, and I don't know anything about phones, so I just figured that something had gone wrong, and I went back to Omaha, and then that was in September of 2008, and in July of 2009, I was coming out to Sun Valley and landed, and for some reason it said something on the phone that I didn't understand, and so I said to my daughter, I said, tell me what's on here, and she flipped the messages, and there was a message from the previous September doing over the phone what they had said they would do by fax. So the message was received slightly late.
So do you think things would have worked out differently?
No. I don't know what, I still don't know. I mean, the message, they gave me some stuff and told me to call and all this, but the idea of making an unlimited guarantee that for 30 or it would probably be longer, that'd probably be 45 days before they could call a meeting at Barclays, in that world that was existing then with the whole world falling apart, who knows what business Lehman might have been doing, and essentially I'm guaranteeing their settlement on all of it. It would have been an unlimited exposure that wouldn't have made sense. They had to figure out some way to limit it, and I don't think that was in their proposal. So I really don't think the world would have changed it.
You know, a lot of people still look back at that weekend, and Lehman Brothers in particular, as the moment of the crisis, and wonder whether the U.S. government should have stepped in or not.
Yeah.
The next morning, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal both wrote op-eds, editorials praising.
Yeah, sure. That's the way everybody felt. The hell with those guys in Wall Street. We've had enough of them, basically. And they would have had this. They would have had to save Lehman and AIG simultaneously, and by that either given the message or said that if necessary, if it spread to Merrill. Now it so happened there was a deal on Sunday on Merrill, but that's going to take a while to close and everything. So they would have had to make huge overall guarantees. That was the question that they really faced. Now I know they feel that on top of that they couldn't have, that they didn't have the power to. But long ago, some Fed chairman told me that whatever the Fed thinks it can do, it can do. Now that may have changed some under under Dodd-Frank, but that was the prevailing view of at least one Fed chairman.
So you think the Fed could have done it if they wanted to?
I think if I were chairman of the Fed and I saw what was going on in the United States then, I think I would have done it whether I could do it or not. I mean, are they going to come down? The Supreme Court going to send down some guy to arrest me as president of the Fed? I mean, I would feel it would be an act that I should do in the interest of the country, if I were in that position.
So you think it was a mistake?
I don't know. I mean, because they'd have had to guarantee so much of public opinion. Can you imagine public opinion if all of a sudden, people are losing their houses and facing being underwater and all kinds of personal problems, and all of a sudden you've guaranteed that everybody at AIG is going to be okay and everybody at Lehman's going to be okay. I'm not sure it would have been. It would have been very tough to do.
How much political pressure at that time, do you remember, was on both Hank and the Fed and everybody when it came to bailout?
That was huge. That was huge. I mean, I think that Bernanke, I think that Hank Paulson, I think that Tim Geithner, I think they did it, and I think George W. Bush did the right thing. I think they were heroic, but you weren't going to sell that to the American people, and I don't blame them. I mean, all they knew was that they hadn't done anything wrong, and their world was falling apart.
When people talk about the world falling apart, just put it, because you're so good at this, just put it in layman's terms. What do you think the edge of the cliff looked like? I mean,
Well,
what was on the other side?
Eventually, the country, I mean, the farms don't go away, the industrial plants don't go away, the houses don't go away. They all change hands, as Gertrude Stein said, But we would right ourselves, but you had this huge economic machine that has all kinds of productive capacity and people going to work every day and imaginative individuals coming up with new products and everything. But when the train goes off the tracks, when you won't deal with anybody else, when banks get worried about their intraday acceptance, from other banks, which they did, and you can't blame them. I mean, when you think of, tens or hundreds of billions of dollars flowing through there between opening and closing of the bank, and all of a sudden you're balanced with some little bank that may go under that night, becomes huge. I mean, the way the dominoes topple, what we really learned in that particular panic was the fact that we're all dominoes and we're all very close together. Now, it doesn't destroy, like I say, the plant. But when the machine gets gummed up, it can take a long time. When people don't trust each other to do business with each other, when you don't trust the people that you've sent $3.5 billion to in money market funds, like I said, maybe $1.5 billion, or I should say $3.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion of that's in government-related money market funds. But when you have people worried about $2 trillion on that, they're going to freeze.
Two things. One is you had mentioned dominoes. And I think it's Ed Lafler who has talked about this idea that maybe they're not dominoes, but they're like popcorn. That the skillet was so hot that even if you had picked off Lehman Brothers or AIG, the others would have still gone anyway. I'm curious what you think of that.
Well, the dominoes were totally compressed. I mean, General Electric was in there. Every household name was there, and the question whether bank lines would be any good. I've never counted on bank lines. They want to do it, but self-preservation always comes first, so when really Freddie and Fannie tripped it off, because their paper was held all over the world. And here, all of a sudden, these two institutions that either own or guarantee 45% of all the residential mortgages in the United States, $5 trillion almost. $5 trillion, those are big numbers in this world. And all of a sudden, they both have conservatorship. You wake up in early September and you find they're both in conservatorship. And then from that point on, we were in big trouble.